NASCAR announces that more fans will be allowed in the stands for upcoming races, and it sounds like Tony Stewart is definitely interested in hiring Kyle Larson for next year. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots of racing from Pocono this weekend. That's just right around the corner. But before race cars hit the tricky triangle, we do have a few things to talk about in today's episode. But before that, I know what you guys are thinking. First thing y'all noticed after you clicked on this video, that's right, we've got the Corey LaJoie Scooby-Doo car on display now. Look at that thing. Pretty groovy. Really brings out the rest of the room. No, okay, I'm just kidding. I got new glasses. They're a little thicker than usual. Figured I'd just go full hipster, I guess. Anyway, nobody cares about that. We have a lot to talk about in today's episode. Let's start with the news from earlier today. New Hampshire Motor Speedway announced that they will allow fans at their August 2nd NASCAR Cup Series race. From reports, it sounds like they're looking at 35% capacity, which New Hampshire, I believe, seats roughly 80,000, so a little less than half of that. You're probably talking 25, 30,000 fans, if I had to guess. That's similar to what Bristol's planning to do here in just a few weeks. But New Hampshire is significant because that's up in the northeastern United States, which of course was hit hardest by the pandemic early on. I guess New Hampshire itself, I don't know how badly New Hampshire is hit, but I know the surrounding area like New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania, a lot of them were hit a bit harder. So still, Northeast, it's good to know that NASCAR is able to get up there and that I guess they're feeling comfortable enough to allow some number of fans at the racetrack. So I guess that's cool to hear. This comes, of course, shortly after NASCAR announced 30,000 fans would be allowed at the Bristol All-Star race on July 15th. Texas Motor Speedway has said that they will allow fans on their July 19th race. And actually earlier today, they once again confirmed that they're looking at maybe 50% capacity, which I'll be honest, given recent year attendance at Texas Motor Speedway, they're probably not going to get to 50% capacity. That place seats over 100,000 people. I don't see them getting 60,000 or more fans to that racetrack this year, given all the circumstances. But still, Texas Motor Speedway reassured people today they're still planning on allowing fans at the race on July 19th, despite the recent increase in COVID cases in the state of Texas. Of course, Talladega Superspeedway this past Monday, I suppose, had 5,000 fans in attendance. And I will say, after looking at several fans' videos, I watched a few different videos from fans who were at that race, it looked like they had a pretty good setup to manage social distancing and everything, from temperature checks before you enter the facility, before you even park your car. It looked like all merchandise, concessions, what few there were actually running, all had markings in place and things in place to promote social distancing. And I will say, most of the videos I saw, most of the fans seem to be wearing masks or some sort of facial covering. Now, a few videos I saw once people got up into the stands where, since there was only 5,000 people there, it was really spread out. Some people then I saw did not have masks on, but I mean, that's fair enough. You're not really that close to anybody at that point. But I will say I was fairly encouraged by what I saw from Talladega Superspeedway and how the fans seemed to go along with it. From several fans I heard from, said it really wasn't that big a deal. They really didn't really take away from the experience. Obviously, not a lot of stuff going on before the race, unfortunately. A lot of the pre-race party, so to speak, is not really there. And Talladega, of course, didn't have campers on the infield, which was weird to see, but overall fans seem to think it went pretty well from the few that I've heard from. Of course, maintaining social distancing and all that will get more difficult when, Bristol allows 30,000 fans. Texas, if they actually allow 50% capacity, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. New Hampshire, if they have 30,000 fans, it's going to get more difficult, and I do encourage people who are going to any of those races to adhere to all the protocols and all the rules NASCAR puts in place. I will be at the Bristol All-Star race July 15th. I will be wearing a mask. I'm excited to film a video there and kind of show you everyone at home what a post-current pandemic NASCAR race looks like. But I will encourage everyone who's attending the Bristol race, as well as future races that allow fans over at least the next few weeks, next couple of months, I would encourage everyone to wear masks. Even though it may not be required at all of these tracks, I see it as kind of the bare minimum, the least you can do. But that's just my take on that. Hopefully NASCAR can continue to open up racetracks safely, but of course there are a lot of obstacles to doing so. But that's the news there. Let's jump to, I guess, silly season. I guess that's the category this next topic fits under. So I saw a tweet, I think 2 days ago, from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal. He highlighted a Q&A that well-known reporter Robin Miller did on Racer.com earlier in the week, in which he mentions that he recently talked to Tony Stewart, and Tony Stewart expressed interest in signing driver Kyle Larson to his Cup Series race team. Here's the full quote from Robin Miller. He says, "I called AJ, I assume Foyt, several weeks ago and told him to hire Larson, but he seemed to think Tony Stewart was going to do it. I asked Stu a couple weeks ago and he said he'd like to, but nothing to report yet." I did a silly season predictions video like over 2 months ago, and in that video, I predicted Kyle Larson would go to Stewart Racing and would likely replace Clint Bowyer in the 14 car. Clint Bowyer is in a contract year. He's getting a little bit older. The results really haven't been there in recent years. He's shown this year an interest in TV. He's been involved with Fox a whole lot more. Makes me think that after this year, he will likely take a step away from the driver's seat and will instead step into the broadcast booth starting in 2021. That seems to be where he's headed. So with the 14 car likely open at the end of this season, I figured Kyle Larson, who is really talented, shares a similar dirt racing background to team owner, co-owner Tony Stewart. I figured Larson would be the perfect candidate for the 14 car. That was before the incident during the pandemic hiatus where Kyle Larson, of course, on a hot mic during a live stream used a racial slur. Of course, that led to pretty much all of his major sponsors, Credit One, McDonald's, Chevrolet, and more, dropping him instantly. And that basically gave Chip Ganassi, his team owner at the time, no choice but to fire him. I mean, Chip Ganassi basically had two options: either get rid of Kyle Larson or lose a ton of money and maybe go out of business. So it was really no option for Chip Ganassi. He had to let Kyle Larson go. And this was also before all the recent political and social things, even surrounding NASCAR with Bubba Wallace. This was before all that. I thought Larson would go to Stewart Racing, but with everything that's happened in the last 2 months, I'll admit it, I was starting to have my doubts. I wasn't sure if Kyle Larson would be back in a Cup car by 2021, because after the Larson incident, after he apologized and then subsequently deleted all his social media and kind of went away for a few weeks, many of his peers, several of his drivers, including Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, said that they believe Kyle Larson will get another chance in NASCAR, and they think that it's a good thing if that happens. But up until this week, we really hadn't heard anything about Kyle Larson regarding a potential return to NASCAR. Now, we do know he's run a lot of dirt races across the country, different series, different types of cars, and he's done a lot of winning. He recently went on a streak where he won 8 straight dirt features across a couple different series, a couple different types of cars, several different states. 8 straight feature wins for Kyle Larson. The dude's a menace. The dude's been on a mission. Clearly, Kyle Larson did not forget how to drive. I don't think anyone was really arguing that. We know he's great at dirt racing. That's where he kind of made a name for himself originally. That's where his roots truly are. There really hasn't been a whole lot of conversation about Kyle Larson's potential return to NASCAR. Earlier this week, he appeared on a show, I believe on MRN, where they asked him about that. They asked him whether or not he wants to get back into NASCAR, whether or not he still thinks he has something left to prove. And this was Kyle Larson's response to that question.
You always said that Cup Series racing was your ultimate goal. Is that still your ultimate goal?
Cup Series?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love the opportunity to get back there and race. I feel like I've got a lot left to prove there, personally and professionally. But at the same time, I'm just happy to be racing. And I'm having so much fun right now, driving all different types of race cars, every day of the week, kind of taking me back to 2011 and 12 when I had, the most fun of my career. It's honestly been more fun than I've had in a long time. And it's just stuff that, I hoped to be doing, 10 years from now or more, but it's come sooner, and I'm kind of, happy that I'm getting to do it at a young age and before my kids are in school or anything like that. So, but yeah, I don't want to ever close the door on a NASCAR opportunity, because like I said, I feel like I've got a lot left to prove there.
Obviously, Larson indicates he would like to get back in NASCAR at some point, but he also says there that he's happier now, and he's been happier the last few weeks than he was for several years when he was focused on NASCAR, which kind of just confirms what we all believed all along, that Larson's heart really was in dirt all along. When he won the Chili Bowl earlier this season, he called it the biggest win of his life. I mean, I don't blame the guy. I mean, like I said, he grew up racing dirt. Dirt was his life for many, many years. It's his passion. I mean, I can't fault the guy for loving something like that. But I will say in that quote, it does sound kind of uncertain whether or not Larson really is interested in the Cup Series. Now, if Tony Stewart and Gene Haas slide him a contract this offseason for 7, maybe 8 figures, I don't know what kind of figures it would be, one of those big contracts towards him, it will probably be difficult for Kyle Larson to walk away. But now the question is, will Tony Stewart, Gene Haas, the two owners of Stewart Racing, will they offer Kyle Larson a contract? What needs to happen for that step to be taken? Well, I said it at the very beginning, when Kyle Larson was initially fired from Chip Ganassi Racing and was basically cut from NASCAR for the time being, I said then that I believe for Kyle Larson to get back in NASCAR, he would need to show that he had learned from his mistake, that he understood that what he had done was wrong, he understood the repercussions behind it, and that he was going to make a serious effort to grow and learn from that mistake. I said that's what he needed to do. He needed to make a clear effort to improve himself from that mistake. And in the last several months, Kyle Larson has clearly made an effort. He's done volunteer work, charity work. I've seen him He's appeared at food drives, and a few weeks ago, he actually attended the George Floyd Memorial in Minnesota. Now, none of this was posted by Kyle Larson to his social media. In fact, none of this was posted by Kyle Larson at all. This was all posted by different organizations that he was working with, volunteering with. They're the ones that posted these types of things, and fans like me and you and other people saw Kyle Larson in the photos and kind of put two and two together. This doesn't look like a guy who's just trying to do the right thing for attention. It honestly has a little bit more integrity behind it, in my opinion. The fact that he hasn't been going out of his way to publicize all this stuff and make it about him, he's really not doing any of that. So I do give Kyle Larson some credit. He does appear to be making an effort to show that he's learned and to improve himself from that past mistake. Now, of course, I'm not the one who gets to decide whether or not Kyle Larson is forgiven or not. You know, every fan, every team owner, every driver is going to go about that differently, go about that in their own way. Every sponsor, of course, is going to go about that in their own way. But I do believe, based on what we've seen recently, that Kyle Larson still has a very good chance of landing with Stewart Racing for the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season. When you think about it, he really only needs to bring maybe one sponsor with him. He just needs to find one company, one brand, one partner who believes in him, who is willing to support him despite the possible baggage that comes with it. He really just needs one significant partner to come his way, because Tony Stewart and Gene Haas have shown in the past a willingness to fund some of their cars out of pocket. You see Haas on the hood of a lot of Stewart Haas racing cars. Stewart and Gene Haas both have, partial ownership in some of their other sponsors that appear on those race cars from time to time. So Kyle Larson doesn't need to bring 36 races of funding behind him. He doesn't need to bring, Credit One, McDonald's. He doesn't need to bring them all back with him. He just needs maybe one, maybe two. I don't know. Kyle Larson obviously is a generational talent. We've never seen him in top NASCAR Cup Series equipment. And so a lot of people are still kind of excited, kind of watering at the mouth to see what he can do given a top ride. Given recent events, I honestly think Tony Stewart, Gene Haas, and Kyle Larson, that pairing just makes a lot of sense. I mean, you think about it, Tony Stewart, he's used to dealing with off-the-track issues as well. He's had to overcome more than his fair share of distractions, you might say, during his career. Both he and Haas have shown a willingness to give, other troubled drivers perhaps a second chance, like with Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch had been suspended multiple times before he got to SHR. They stuck with him even during domestic abuse allegations. Stewart and Haas are willing to work with drivers who have, off the track issues perhaps. So it really would not shock me, even with everything that's happened in the last couple of months, it would not shock me if the 14 car for Tony Stewart and Gene Haas still ends up being the landing place for Kyle Larson at the end of the 2020 year going into 2021. I still think it makes a whole lot of sense. And hearing this, kind of report that Stewart is interested in Larson and is maybe trying to connect the last few pieces on that one does not shock me in the slightest. We'll have to wait and see. Not a lot of silly season going on the last couple months. And we've heard rumors that Eric Jones has started contract extension talks with Joe Gibbs, but we'll see where those go. There haven't been a whole lot of silly season things to discuss in recent weeks, but I'm sure as the season goes on, as the schedule becomes more definite, those conversations will pick up pretty quickly. But that's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you are new. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. We've got t-shirts available down by the description. Check those out if you're interested. And of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. I greatly appreciate all of your support. Thank you all for supporting Out of the Groove, supporting the show. If you also want to be a sponsor of Out of the Groove, check out that top link down below in the description. I greatly appreciate the support, you guys. It really means a lot to me. Lots of racing this weekend. Cup Series races Saturday and Sunday at Pocono. I haven't yet decided how I'm going to do Out of the Grooves. I'm probably going to do one Saturday and one Sunday, reacting to each race the day they happen. But keep an eye out for that. So there's going to be a lot of videos this weekend, a lot of triangle talk this weekend. Should be fun. I'm excited for it. But thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you again very, very soon. Hope your week was great, guys. Hope this weekend's even better. See you guys.